basically, we're looking at the Civil War because it's the sesquicentennial, or the 150th anniversary of the Civil War. And what I'm doing is literally not so much month by month, but every couple of months I will be changing the exhibit in this case to review a battle or an occupation that happened 150 years ago. And we will be doing this, and I have been doing this since, I think I started in September of 2010, as Lincoln was not only nominated but elected president, and his presidency, the first few weeks of his presidency, to the firing on Fort Sumter in North Carolina in 1861. Excuse me, in 1861, and I did have that in this case at the time. The material I'm using is all from our archives. These books. This is Frank Leslie's famous Leaders in Battles, I'm reading it, of the Civil War to get the title correctly. We have another connection with Frank Leslie's magazine. One of our graduates, Sadie Neller Miller, known as Mrs. C.R. Miller, was a photographer and reporter for them back in the 80s. She graduated from here in 1880. So in the late 1880s, 1890, right up until she died in 1920. Her husband, C.R. Miller, also graduated from the college. So we do have kind of a tie to this magazine. However, she was not around when these lithographs were done and these drawings were done. What they did in about 1893, people were beginning larger and larger reunions of soldiers because they were getting older. It's been, it's been 20-some-odd years since the end of the war. They were talking about, they were beginning to have reunions, so they were meeting more and more. This type of material became popular. And what both these books did is they went to the newspapers and of the period, and they took out the drawings. Some of them give credit to who drew them and what newspaper they came from. Newspapers shared many of these drawings anyway, and reprinted them. So here, this month, or March, I should say March, is the Battle of the Merrimack and Monitor, the two ironclads. And that's what we're showing here. Of course, by April, or I think it's by April, they're both down at the bottom of the sea. They had one fight, and that was it. That was it. They both limped away from it. The other thing I'm showing, and the next thing in April, we're going to have the occupation of New Orleans. There's not a New Orleans battle, it's more of an occupation, and basically our troops are there to stop any materials and other items coming in to help the South. It's very similar to what they do in the blockade out in Bermuda, and along that way there's a large blockade keeping the British from bringing in, because the British haven't decided who they're going to support, whether it's going to be the North or the South. So that's what I'm trying to show, is through fairly contemporary materials, the war, and to remember. We do have some things. Everything, as I said, is from the archives. Okay, I'm not going out and getting material from other places to show this. So all these items are in collections within our archives. The interesting thing is we have, and this is real Confederate script. And what I'm doing here is I have script for 1861, which I showed all last year. This year it's the script from 1862, 1863, 1864 will be shown. But this is original Confederate script. It was sent out to libraries by the U.S. government in 1913. So this is what Confederate script looked like and how it changed. and I'm showing backs and fronts when I can. We have duplicates of script, so that. The exciting thing that's coming is we do have a Civil War sword purported to be. There's no way to prove it. The only thing we can say is the sword is from the Civil War era, to be that of George Washington Sandoe, S-A-N-D-O-E, I believe, who was killed in 1863, the first Union soldier to die in the Battle of Gettysburg. So we have his sword, and it's on loan from Mr. Martin to our history department, and I will display that. The other thing that's happening, of course this is all next year for an exhibit, is we also have newspapers from the Gettysburg area, or a newspaper showing the South and the North coming together just before the Battle of Gettysburg. So it's a very interesting piece. So look forward to those next year, about a year from now. But in between times, as I said, we're going to just highlight various battles.
Okay. Now, I'm wondering what connections exist between McDaniel and the Civil War. Obviously, you mentioned a couple of alumni. Does this have any relevance to McDaniel today, or?
Well, I think the Civil War has relevance to everybody today. You know, this was a fight that really defined our country. Until this, I don't know if you could truly call us the United States. We had all sorts of problems, all based in from the Revolutionary War to the War of 1812, which was our final revolution to break away from England, to now becoming a United States. So from really 1814, at the end of the War of 1812, we were going in various directions, and different states were doing different things, and there was going to be a clash. The major clash was over slavery, but slavery was really the full outward expression of two different cultures. That clashed. And I think it's something we have to look back at, to what we did. And both the North and the South are involved in slavery in different ways. The North is selling the slaves to the South, and the South using and buying the slaves. So, there. So that's why, and I think we have to look at it.
All right. One more question. What is the significance of this exhibit to the Hoover Library and to McDaniel College?
Well, again, the college, in fact, the cornerstone for Old Main, our first building, was September 1866. This was well after the war. Our first president, James Thomas Ward, came here in April of 1866. He had lived in Washington during the Civil War. We had other people that probably, if we check their connections and look back, and I have not done that, it would be an interesting project, including our professors, our presidents, what connection they had with the Civil War. We were never truly a school divided because it was after the Civil War. The main focus of the college was it was a Methodist college. It was a reason to teach, to educate people who would possibly become preachers. Now, we had men and women, but they were in separate departments, and women were never, to become preachers. But James T. Ward felt that you couldn't be a good preacher unless you were educated. You had to know literature, and of course the Bible, and which were part of our education. But all of education, math, Greek, Latin, a very, very liberal education for the time. Very, very pro-liberal education. So that was the focus. That was the major focus. But within a few years of founding, we don't split so much, but there is a Methodist seminary started on the college, and the last part of that is Elder Dice Hall here. But one thing Ward does is he compares the problems in Methodism, because you have the Methodist Episcopals, mostly Southern, and the Methodist Protestants, mostly Northern, clashing with each other. They broke apart, I believe, in 1828. Now, I don't know a lot about the Methodist Church, so I'd probably have to check some of the facts, but I think they broke apart somewhere in the 1820s. Okay, the church split between Methodist Episcopal, which basically means they had bishops, and bishops voted for other bishops and different things within the church. Methodist Protestants said all that power belonged with the laymen. So he compares this with the Civil War. He does a wonderful comparison of the problems with the Methodist Church with the Civil War. It's a couple of pages within his diary. So it's really, that would I say would be our connection, our one big connection.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Barbara O'Brien, Hoover Library Archivist at McDaniel College. Thank you.